So the new Adam Sandler movie finally came out, and when the trailer for Leo dropped, I just was not expecting much. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's not necessarily because it's Adam Sandler. I mean, he's had his fair share of decent movies, but it just felt like the run-of-the-mill Pixar-style animated movie, you know, just one that we've all seen, we all know. And even in my previous video, I mentioned it and I kind of like bashed it a little bit, which a few comments were like, hey, come on, Leo's not that bad. And I would just like to mention in the video, I was talking solely on the animation aspect. I was talking about Wish and Leo, how like they're both the basic animation that everyone knows. It's not bad, like the animation looks good, it's high quality, it's just the style is just boring. It's generic, which I'll admit Leo's style is definitely boring and generic. But what this movie actually was about was definitely surprising, to say the least. I thought it was just gonna be the unlikely friendship of a reptile and a kid going to school, but it turned out to be something a lot more. It's basically Leo the therapist. Now, I will admit, a lot of this movie is very on the nose. It's very cut and dry. It's not really well written at times. Some of the dialogue in this movie does feel a little bit Instagram quotey. You know, just the whole believe in yourself and everything will be fine type stuff. And I did find myself rolling my eyes a few times throughout this movie. However, the message in this movie is something that children really need. I honestly can't really think of a movie that has delved into the minds of children and adolescents like this. I mean, there is Inside Out, but that's like a very one-person specific situation. And I'm sure there's other movies, but I feel like this one, talking about different situations with different children, which a lot of different children deal with these situations, because it feels like how the world works a lot of times. I feel like it's definitely getting better, but at least when I was going to school, it was always just, oh, that's just how the world works. Or the classic statement of boys will be boys, girls will be girls, or maybe even the classic bullying is good for you, it builds character. This movie takes all of those classic out-of-date ideas and kind of flips it on its head and shows everyone that children deal with a lot of shit. Because if you are someone who has any semblance of sense whatsoever, you would realize that all those things that people tend to say is just bullshit that tries to normalize trauma. Now, one thing I will thoroughly admit that I did not like about this movie, the songs. Songs kind of sucked. The music was not that good. I don't really know what it was about them, but every time they started singing, I just started rolling my eyes. So every single time a song started, I almost forgot that there's music in this movie. You know, you hear the one song, and you're like, oh, maybe this is just like a one-off, you know, they do a little ditty at the beginning of the movie, and then that's oh, there's another one. Now, don't castrate me if you loved the music. I just personally hated it. I mean, if you like it, whatever, do you. You know, do you? I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who love that terribly auto-tuned song about a love relationship between a boy and a drone. But for me, it wasn't it. So we got the two main characters, a turtle voiced by Bill Burr and a tuatara voiced by Adam Sandler, which I thought it was interesting that it was a tuatara. You know, I was thinking it was going to be an iguana or something like that, but they picked a very interesting reptile. But they both did a good job of voice acting. Bill Burr, you know, was Bill Burr. Adam Sandler, you know, did his little voice.
Thank you.
So I'll get out of the way stuff I didn't like about this movie and the stuff that didn't really work. I mean, obviously, the songs, the music, I already said that. And the parts about the writing that just didn't make sense. For example, the whole concept of all of these kids discovering how Leo can talk. However, Leo has hid this from children for 74 years, but all of a sudden, he just can't control himself talking around all these children. That just didn't really make sense to me at all. Or how he gives these children very, very basic advice. Don't get me wrong. This advice is good, and I feel like it would be good for children to hear it, but it's just how quick these children change. There's no like transition period. There's no gradually figuring things out. The child just hears what Leo has to say. The next day, they go right back to school and completely change on a dime, and everything's perfect and happy. It just really feels unnatural a lot of the time in the movie, which, I mean, you know, complaining about things being natural in a movie about a talking reptile is sure, yeah, is a little silly. But there's a lot of those things in there. But I mean, to be honest, if you just kind of turn your brain off a little bit, probably enjoy it a lot more. But I feel like where this movie really thrives is just the message behind it. So the whole concept of the movie is Leo believes that he has 1 year to live because Tuatara's only lived to be 75, or at least that's what he believes it to be. A substitute teacher comes in, and you know, she's that old-fashioned, very stern substitute teacher who's like really cranky and old, but she decides to tell the students to take home a class pet to learn responsibility. So the first time Leo gets taken home, he plans to escape because his whole thing is he has a year to live. He doesn't want to be stuck in this cage the rest of his life. He wants to escape. He wants to see the world. However, when he attempts to do that, he fails and he falls down, yells, and the first student hears it. So he ends up convincing this first student to not tell anyone, and she is the only one that could hear him and the only one that he can talk to. And so that night, he kind of proceeds to give her advice. And the first student is just a girl who doesn't know how to stop talking. And literally the only thing he says is, hey, maybe you should listen to people more. Maybe people don't like you because you talk too much and don't give them time to talk about themselves. So it looks like you're selfish. And the first student is such a great example when I talked about flipping 180, because she goes back to school and she starts to listen for like one conversation. And this is one conversation with these 3 girls who kind of like the mean girls type posse. They bully her, they kind of make fun of her, they laugh at her. And then they have one conversation where she stops talking and listens, and all of them just say, I like her now, she's cool. I like her now. I'm not joking. They literally say that. They walk away from the conversation and say, I like her now.
Why are you talking to Summer? I like her now.
Poof, no more bullies. This could have been done a lot better if there was just more of a transition into these changes throughout the movie and the writing was a bit better, but it's just so unrealistic to the real world. Like, sure, if you go up there and you start listening to the person who's bullying you and maybe that's the reason they don't like you, yeah, they might start liking you or hating you less or being less annoyed of you, but they're not gonna flip on a dime and just start liking you all of a sudden. It takes time for this stuff. So anyway, this thing happens. You know, Leo gets taken home by a student. The student accidentally discovers that Leo can talk. Leo gives this whole spiel of, hey, you're the only one who knows that I talk and I'm the only one who could talk to you, blah, blah, blah. And he convinces every single student of this, and he gives every single student different advice, kind of therapeutic advice in a way. And now every student loves him because every student thinks that he's the only one who could talk to them and vice versa. Because he just gives such incredible advice that every single student's life has changed completely and they're all perfect and happy. I mean, sure, a little bit of advice isn't going to completely change your life, but again, I do kind of like what this movie's trying to do, because the student issues he's talking about are very real. For example, someone who can't control their talking. Maybe they just never had someone tell them why people are annoyed of them, or explain to them that listening is a very important skill to have. Or there's another student who has very super rich parents, and she ends up getting everything she wants. Her dad even ends up paying off the teacher for her to get more time on her test. So this student believes that her and her family are just better than everyone else. And then Leo has to kind of be real with her and be like, hey, I mean, yeah, you are great, but you can't think that you're just above everyone, because then everyone will secretly hate you. Because she is the technical popular girl, but it's like one of those situations where everyone hates the popular girl, but still acts like they like her because she has a lot of money. There's also another student who has a ridiculous amount of medical issues to the point where they can't make friends because his parents are so overly strict about what he can eat, what he can do, who he can talk to. And this one doesn't really make any sense because there's like a whole song of this kid who has all these issues breaking up with the drone, and this drone is like this smart drone that follows him around everywhere and makes sure that everything he's doing is safe for him. So he has to like break up with the drone and kind of do his own thing let the kid be a kid type deal. But obviously in the real world, if you are a child who has overprotective parents and does stuff like that, it won't be as simple as breaking up with a drone. It won't be that simple. But again, I appreciate the sentiment. I know what they were trying to do. And we also have a class clown, and the class clown is that classic trope of being afraid of them figuring out who he really is as a person. There's also a bully who bullies all these different kids because he was held back a grade and he feels dumber than everyone else, so he ends up putting on this facade that he's tough and cool, but in reality he feels very inadequate and stupid. And the list goes on. Like, every student has their own different quirk, different issue, and Leo kind of talks them through it, kind of gives them advice, tells them what they can do to help their situation. Now, there is obviously a shitload of cliches in this movie when it comes to these students, but I feel like that's on purpose because it reaches a broader audience, because I feel like then more students would relate to these situations. It'll reach out to more children who have similar situations to these kids in the movies, and then make them feel better about their situation. Or maybe give these children good advice to make them feel better. And not only kids, this movie could be great for parents as well, because it'll teach parents to start opening dialogues with your goddamn children. Because a lot of parents believe, oh, you're the child, I'm the parent, you do your thing, I'll feed you, I'll do the basic necessities and stuff, but we ain't going deep. We ain't having deep conversation. Some parents are just so goddamn afraid to have like a deep talk with their child. But maybe if a parent sees one of their children within these characters, they'll start realizing, oh shit, maybe it's more complicated than I think. Maybe it isn't boys will be boys. Maybe it isn't bullies will be bullies because, that's just what bullies do. Maybe it isn't, oh, it's fine that my child's getting bullied because it'll make him stronger in the future. Because that's not how the goddamn world works. I don't really know where in life people decided that we should just keep normalizing trauma and just keep pushing down that road and just say everything's okay when a lot of things aren't. But yeah, like I said, maybe this movie will show parents that it is good to open dialogues with your children. Maybe give them advice. I don't know. Maybe be a parent, right? That's what you're supposed to do. You have the wisdom, you have the knowledge. The kids don't. So you help them. Because having a conversation with your child is more powerful than anything. And for some reason, we as humans are allergic to starting dialogues and having conversations, especially when it comes to your children. And not only that, but teachers. Yes, this movie does touch on the whole substitute teacher situation. The substitute teacher has her own reasons for being the way that she is. She even starts talking about how she truly does love teaching and love children. But after we start seeing her backstory, we start to understand her a little bit more. I mean, she does kind of become an antagonist later on in the movie for selfish reasons, but she gradually starts realizing the wrongdoings of her actions and she redeems herself. Also, we could talk about Bill Burr's character, because I really liked Bill Burr's character, not just because, it's Bill Burr, having that blunt comedy that he always does, but he displays the jealous friend, which I've dealt with, and I'm sure plenty of you have dealt with at one time or another. There are so many times where people become successful. Like, for an example, me, I became successful on YouTube, right? I mean, it's sort of, I'm coasting. I'm afloat. I'm afloat on the YouTube platform, all right? I'm surviving. But I had friends who got jealous of what I did and end up just not being friends with me anymore because of that reason. Just, they didn't want to see their friends succeed, which I just would like to mention that those are not your friends. But I like how Squirtle, yes, that is the name of Bill Burr's character, Squirtle becomes jealous that all of the children like him and not Squirtle. So he screws up everything, basically, even sells out Leo to all of the children and makes up this big lie about him, which in turn puts Leo in extreme danger. But he then starts realizing how silly that is for you to be jealous of your friend's success instead of just being happy for them that they are successful. Because those are your real friends. The real friends are not the ones who get upset that you're doing better than them and compare them to you. They're the ones that push you up and make you feel good and feel happy for you whenever you start doing better in life. That's what friends should do. They should lift each other up. They should not break each other down. I honestly really did like the Leo Squirtle dynamic. There were some funny moments between the two of them. I mean, nothing that really made me laugh out loud, haha moment, but gave me a little snicker, little nose exhale, little You know what I mean? One other funny part of this movie, kindergartners. I love how the kindergartners are just these batshit insane creatures. Very accurate. So all in all, I don't think the movie was great by any means. It was not fantastic. There's a lot of writing problems that I didn't really like. But as me being a father, it's nice to see a movie that really touches on the emotional states of all these children, because people deeply underestimate the complications and issues that adolescents deal with. And just go back to the old saying, they're just kids. They'll get over it. They're just children. Come on. But even with all the things I disliked about this movie, I do feel like this message really broke through. And I feel like that's really what it's about in the end. I honestly don't think this movie is meant to be like a perfect movie, because it really was more about the message than anything else. I could thoroughly see how a child would love this movie, and even parents would probably love this movie. Now, the reason I didn't love this movie is I'm overcritical. I make goddamn videos on movies, so I mean, sue me. It's what I do. I nitpick. All right, but thank you guys for watching this video. Please make sure to like and subscribe. You know, all that stuff. I'm gonna go to the bathroom. Bye.